Evening, everybody. Welcome to Cabinet. It's the 9th of the 9th. Usual housekeeping stuff. Can you please introduce yourself when you speak on an item? Make sure your phones are off or on silent. We have an echo in the chamber again. That's annoying. And just a reminder to Cabinet members, when you introduce a paper, if there's no amendments to the recommendations, you don't have to read them all out. Just, propose recommendations as set out in the paper. And I would also like to welcome our new Chief Exec, so Dr. Catherine Howe, who's in our chamber for the first time, month in. Yep. So welcome, Catherine. And that's it. So we'll start the meeting proper. Are there any apologies?
Yes, we have apologies from Councillor Simon Clifford and Councillor Ben Wilson.
Thank you, Kate. Item 2, the minutes of the meeting, which was held on 29th of July, 2025. Anybody got any matters of accuracy they need to raise? I'm not seeing any hands, in which case I will pass the minutes as a true record, and I'll sign them later. Item 3, are there any declarations of interest on items that are on the agenda? Nope, not seeing anybody. Direct to item 4. So we have 2 questions from members of the public tonight. First is from Mr. Jeff Chopping, and the second is from Mr. Robert Horn, who has yet to arrive. So if he does arrive, he will have the opportunity to speak. So Mr. Chopping, over to you.
Right. Thank you. I'm Geoffrey Chopping. And although I am a Holt Parish Councillor, I am not asking this question on behalf of Holt Parish Council. In the current Dorset Council local plan consultation, some settlements are listed for Tiers 1 and Tiers 2 within the text, whilst Tier 3 settlements are listed in Figure 3.2. However, within the main document, there is no precise written definition of the extent of the current or the extent of the enlarged settlements in Tier 1, Tier 2, or Tier 3. Consequently, sufficient information is not easily available to all residents to know if the areas in which they are interested are affected. The only available precise definition of areas are civil parish boundaries, and 3.2.8 states all other areas are either rural in character or comprise small villages, hamlets, that do not have sufficient services or facilities for everyday needs to be met locally. These areas are unlikely to be suitable for growth in line with national policy. Without definitions of any precise areas to the contrary, the only practical textual definition that can be used for areas are civil parish boundaries, and certainly not the vague whims of the Strategic Planning Department. Question: can Dorset Council confirm that as changes to the Green Belt can only be made during the local plan consultation process, and as Holt Parish is not directly mentioned within Tiers 1, 2 or 3 as being suitable for development within this local plan consultation, that there will be no changes to the Greenbelt for any part of the Holt Parish area as a result of this local plan consultation? Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Mr. Chopping. It will be answered by Councillor Shane Bartlett.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Shane Bartlett, Cabinet Member for Planning and Emergency Planning and Ward Member for Wimble Minster. And thank you for your question, Mr. Chopping. Changes to town Greenbelt boundaries can only be made through the adoption of a new local plan. The current consultation process is an early step towards the preparation of a new Dorset Council local plan, and we cannot confirm where changes to the Greenbelt will or will not take place until we have considered all the evidence and the consultation responses and taken the plan through further stages of its preparation, which include a public examination. The consultation document identifies settlements that are potentially suitable for development classified as Tiers 1, 2 or 3, depending on their size and level of facilities. This is for the purpose of considering options for development around the edges of those built-up areas that would function as an extension of that built-up area, regardless of whether it is in the same parish. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bartlett. You'll also get a written response to that question. Okay, I apologise, but you will get a written copy of the answer. Mr. Horn, I'm glad you could make it. So over to you to ask your question.
I last posed a question in February, and I write hash of it over the internet, so I'm here in person. I'll make a hash of it now. Question is on the subject of good practice in multidisciplinary assessment of needs for NHS continuing healthcare. I'm afraid it's got a lot of acronyms and technical terms in it in the first bit, but I'll do my best. My question at the Cabinet meeting held on the 25th of February this year was, has Dorset Council considered agreeing with NHS Dorset a joint model of assessment? I posed the question because I knew that NHS Dorset had, in the case of one care home resident, interfered in the work of the multidisciplinary team to reverse its recommendation on eligibility for NHS continuing healthcare. In response to my question, Councillor Steve Robinson wrote, the national framework states that only in exceptional circumstances and for clearly articulated reasons should the multidisciplinary team's recommendation not be followed. That is correct, but in the case of interest to me, I now know that NHS Dorset holds no records of exceptional circumstances. Nevertheless, NHS Dorset tells me its CHC decision-making procedure complies with the national framework. That can't be right, so I investigated further. I discovered that NHS Dorset has an internal procedure under which it requires MDTs, the multidisciplinary teams that is, to submit each completed and signed DST, the decision support tool, to its decision-making team, the DMT, before issued to the subject person. Without citing or explaining exceptional circumstances or involving the subject person, the DMT can require an MDT to reconvene to take into account the DMT's assessment of the subject person's healthcare needs and the DMT's opinion on the eligibility recommendation, and all before issuing the DST to the subject person. That certainly isn't right. I sent to Councillor Robinson on the 1st of June my information document entitled Good Practice in the Multidisciplinary Assessment of Needs for NHS Continuing Healthcare, which explains where NH Dorset's reconvene procedure is non-compliant with the national framework and how it disadvantages both Dorset Council and care home residents. NHS Dorset should not require Dorset Council to provide CHC social worker input to an MDT without having good reasons, capable of being clearly articulated, for believing that there are exceptional circumstances Where is it? Come on. For the return by the DMT of a completed DST to the MDT for reconsideration. With me so far, lots of acronyms, I'm sorry. I suggest that, as a standard procedure, NHS Dorset is required to produce that information before Dorset Council agrees to commit additional staff time to an MDT and reconvene. So, at the end of all that, my question to the Cabinet is, will Dorset Council require NHS Dorset to produce the evidence of exceptional circumstances with clearly articulated reasons whenever NHS Dorset makes a request of additional social services time for the reconvene of an MDT?
Thank you for your very detailed question. Councillor Robinson will respond.
Hi, Mr. Hall. Good evening. My name's Steve Robinson. I'm Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care, also Ward Member for Upton and Litchfield Matravers. Thank you for your question and for the three-letter acronyms that accompany it. This is a complicated area, and I appreciate the concern that you've got and the process that you've been through. Before I sort of officially answer, I should mention the NHS is its own entity. And although we have considerable influence in its decision-making, we don't have control. We work in partnership. But the answer to your question specifically is another three-letter. It's yes. Yes, Dorset Council is committed to active participation in CHC continuing healthcare in the multidisciplinary team processes. The Council employs specialist CHC social workers to undertake assessments and will typically attend the decision support tool meetings, either in person or virtually. If a DSCT meeting is reconvened by the NHS, they usually provide the CHC social workers with detailed information to highlight the discrepancies between the evidence that's been presented and the recommendations that are being made in order that they can agree a way forward, particularly if there's points of disagreement. So, although the answer is yes, your question does highlight how complex the area is, which you might know better than I do. So we'd like to offer you a written response where we can set out in more detail the areas of the CHC framework that governs the way that we should be working with NHS Dorset so we could resolve these things.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Mr. Horn, I hope you're happy with that response, and you will get the written copies.
Indeed, I look forward to the written response. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. So we now move on to the next item, which is questions from members. We have three tonight, one from Councillor Monks and two from Councillor O'Leary. So the first is from Councillor Craig Monks, and it will be answered by Councillor John Andrews.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Craig Monks, Bedminster Ward. Residents have expressed significant concern to me over the recent reduction in services of the X51 and X53 bus routes, which are vital for connectivity in our area. Can the portfolio holder clarify the rationale behind these changes, and will he intervene to ensure that these essential services are improved rather than reduced? Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Monks. Regarding the X51 and the X53 routes, I understand the concerns raised by residents about the winter timetables on these routes, which are essential for connecting communities across West Dorset. To clarify, the X51 and X53 are operated as commercial services run by First Bus. Each winter, First produces a reduced timetable, as has been their long-standing practice. In recent years, the bus company has requested financial assistance from Dorset Council to maintain the service throughout the winter months. This year, First Bus requested a significantly higher amount, an increase that Dorset could not support due to the sharp rise in cost and the limited funding available. To keep the route going through the winter, council officers worked quickly with First to revise the route and operating pattern. These changes reduced the cost and helped improve the long-term viability of their service, not just for the winter period, but with improvements for the Weymouth area throughout the year. It's important to note that this was not a council decision. Timetables for commercial services are set by the operator. The council can only influence them when public funding is involved, and even then we are constrained by the available resources and the operator's legal obligations, such as driver hours and rest periods. We are currently investigating with First how improved connections with the train services at Axminster, particularly the 735 service to Exeter, can be achieved. We will also continue to engage with local groups and stakeholders to monitor the winter services. Looking ahead, First Bus has agreed to start planning earlier for next year's service, which they need to, and to work more closely with the council and community to ensure that the service reflects local needs as far as possible. However, it's important to recognise that the government does not currently provide the level of bus funding required to deliver the kind of rural bus services that residents in Dorset rightly expect and deserve. And thank you again for raising this important issue.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Councillor Monks, do you have a supplementary question on the similar topic?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Andrews, for the answer. I guess my follow-up question would be, it's obviously a difficult situation because my understanding is this has all become a very last-minute change due to first. So I guess if there's possibly two sneaky questions I would ask is, what could we do in the future to sort of stop the last-minute changes from first doing this to us again? And secondly, if funding is the main issue, can we look again at that? Because obviously public transport will feed into the priorities of the council with regards to nature and climate emergency. And whilst I'm sure members from Weymouth will appreciate the protection of their service, this will affect people getting to education, going to their jobs in the West, not just Bridport, but further afield. So I wonder if we could look again at that funding and see if we can find some pennies down the sofa there. Councillor Andrews.
We will certainly give it a good go of trying to find some pennies down the sofa, and we will be in communication with First about some minor adjustments to that table. But when you get confronted with 125% rise in the subsidy required, you take a big gulp, don't you? So yeah, we'll look. Great.
So the second question is from Councillor O'Leary.
Thank you very much, Chairman. This one, I think, is for Councillor Andrews. The junctions coming onto Littlemore Road continue to grow in congestion, made worse by an increase in housing in the area, and potentially due to be made worse by both more holiday caravans nearby Preston and new proposed homes contained within the local plan. On busy periods of the day, residents are subjected to a lengthy wait that is increasing as the area gets busier. What steps will the council take to relieve this pressure, and what steps have been taken since this issue has been raised in previous meetings by both myself and Councillor Peter Dickinson?
Thank you, Councillor O'Leary. Councillor Andrews will know this. I know Councillor Andrews is very intimate with that area now.
Thank you very much, Councillor O'Leary, for your question. The transport assessment for the approved 500 dwellings to the north of Littlemore Road included both the junctions of Louviers Road with Littlemore Road. This identified that no improvement works were required, and we have kept the junctions under review as people move into the new houses. And we'll continue to monitor junctions as the development continues. And certainly there will be some planning if and when any of the proposed options for the local plan are taken up. I actually thought, right, I better go round there this afternoon, so I had to go to Chickerell to see somebody about another issue. And I thought, right, I'll go round Louviers Road this afternoon and visit my wife's favourite shop and actually drive all the way around Louviers Road. I had no problem getting in and out of either junction, and it was at school time, you know, school finished. Also, during the summer, we have visited several times, and I've never had a problem there going in between the 10 and 11 o'clock on a Saturday morning. So, yes, we will keep it under review, and I do understand your anxiousness about this situation, but my highways team are very proficient, and I'm sure they'll do a great job if and when required.
Would you like a supplementary on that subject? Okay, in which case you can have your next question.
Thank you very much. Astor Housing are currently selling off 2. That today rose to 3, actually, because another one's gone on the market today. Social housing on the Littlemore estate, and have already sold 1 this year. These are well-built, large, sturdy family homes that have housed long-term residents for many years and hold many fond family memories within them. Astor claimed to me that these are sold due to the upkeep and then reinvested in new homes. However, it appears these homes do not appear to be in the same area as those sold. Many of residents of mine are waiting years in the housing register, and the double hit of watching family homes they could feel be sold off, and then when the housing is offered, it's normally miles away from their family and their community. This policy by Astor is breaking up and watering down working class communities such as mine by splitting up families and moving people miles from their neighbourhoods. Will the council formally write to Astor imploring them to review this policy and put communities at the heart of their decision making?
Thank you for your question, Councillor O'Leary. I know it's an issue that doesn't just affect your own ward. Swanage have been particularly impacted. I think Councillor Jill Taylor is going to respond.
Thank you. Councillor Jill Taylor, Cabinet Member for Health and Housing and Member for Chickerell. Thank you, Councillor O'Leary, for raising this really important issue. I really do share your concerns, and I'm actively pursuing it at a senior level with Astor Housing. Astor is the largest registered provider in the Dorset Council area, managing over 7,000 tenancies and delivering a major development programme of new homes in our area. Their role in delivering and developing affordable homes is vital, but so is making sure that those homes remain within communities that need them most. That's why I'm challenging the pattern and number of sales in areas such as Littlemore, and also has just been mentioned in Swanage, where larger family homes are being lost and not always replaced locally. The council relies on registered providers like Astor to meet housing need and tackle homelessness. Although we understand that some homes may be sold when refurbishment is unviable, the concentration of sales in certain areas without equivalent local replacement is deeply concerning. This issue has been raised not only by residents, but also by councillors across all political parties, and is now subject to a working group with our housing member group. Astor does build more homes than it sells in Dorset, and we really do value that. But we need to see a more balanced approach, one that protects community interests and reflects local housing need. In June, I met with Astor's senior leadership alongside our Corporate Director for Housing, Andrew Billany, following a formal letter outlining our concerns. This was a frank and robust meeting, so please be assured that I asserted the Council's position fairly and firmly. I've since written again, urging them to review their disposal policies and involve the Council in shaping a more community-focused approach. I'm pressing for a date for the promised follow-up meeting with me and will ensure your concerns and those of other members right across the Chamber are part of that conversation. Thank you again for raising this. I've made Astor aware that this important issue is being raised here today and have shared your question with them. I'll keep you and other interested members updated as we push for progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Leary, do you want to ask another question?
No, Chair, I just want to say I'm very happy with that answer.
In which case, we'll move on to item number 6, which is the forward plan. There have been some amendments since it was published in the agenda. 2 items have been added so far, which is item 1, which is council tax for care leavers, and another one, which is modifications of public health contracts over 500k. So they will be appearing on the October Cabinet meeting, and I believe there may be a few others. So October's looking quite busy. Anybody else want to comment on the forward plan? Nope, I don't see any questions. So the first paper tonight is the item 7, Dorset Safeguarding Children's Partnership Annual Report. It will be presented by Councillor Claire Sutton, and I believe Councillor Steve Robinson will second.
It's for information only, actually. So this report marks the first full year of our safeguarding partnership since disaggregation from BCP in August 24, and I think, as a consequence, better reflects local need, actually. It highlights our collective efforts as statutory and non-statutory partners to strengthen safeguarding arrangements, embed education as a statutory partner, and amplify the voices of children and families. It also outlines key achievements and demonstrates our commitment to continuous improvement. So, as I say, it is for information only, but any questions or comments would be welcome. Thank you.
Steve Robinson, very happy to second.
Any members of this council wish to ask a question? I'm not seeing anybody. No. So the recommendation, as Councillor Sutton has said, is that the report be received and noted. So I think we've noted it. It does ask me to seek a proposer and seconder for that. So we've done that. Does anybody disagree with noting it? I can't imagine that's a thing. No. Okay, in which case the recommendation's carried. Item 8, this is an interesting one, which is the new street lighting policy. Councillor John Andrews is going to present this.
Thank you very much, Chair. The new street lighting policy. Dorset Council is proud to be leading the UK with a bold and innovative new street lighting policy. The recommendations from this policy will mean the upgrades to thousands of our street lights, putting Dorset at the forefront of street lighting technology in a way that is cleaner, greener, and protects the excellent quality of Dorset night skies. We will also be the first authority in the country to take a precautionary approach towards possible human health impacts by using a warmer colour temperature lighting. Adopting this policy will support the replacing of 18,500 of our old inefficient street lights with cutting-edge LED technology. This, combined with the introduction of late night evening dimming, will see the energy use reduced by up to 60%. This policy is not only environmentally responsible, but also financially sustainable, delivering long-term savings for taxpayers. Crucially, this transformation is being accelerated through the private sector investment, ensuring rapid delivery without placing additional strain on public finances. We're also empowering local communities, giving town and parish councils in conservation areas the option to tailor their lighting needs. With a clear focus on climate goals, modern technology and community well-being, Dorset is not just adapting to the future, we're shaping it.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. I will happily second that. It's part of our climate agenda. It'll save us money as well. So I don't know who had their hands up first. I'll go with Councillor Christopher first, and then Councillor O'Leary, I think, has had his hand up. Councillor Christopher. Councillor Christopher, you're on.
Thank you, Chair. Having attended a meeting... Having attended a meeting of Broad Windsor Parish Council yesterday evening, there is clear concern about the state of street lighting in Broad Windsor and the impact that it's having on residents. I will speak very briefly. The Parish Council welcome all the support they get from the Executive Director for Place in respect of other matters, and we look forward to Broad Windsor being one of the very first places to see improvements given the huge level of concern about the impact of poor quality street lighting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Christopher. I don't think there was a question there, so we'll move on to Councillor O'Leary.
Yeah, part of my ward in the past has had a special policy allowances around street lighting because we've had an issue of antisocial behaviour in the area, so certain areas have had street lighting extended all during the evening. Can I have assurances that areas where there have been concerns around crime and ASB aren't going to have those there is going to be things put in place to make sure that those areas maintain well lit at night in order for resident safety to be main priority over other measures?
So Councillor Andrews will answer that.
Yeah, there will be no change to the current policy, Councillor.
That was a very quick answer. Was there anybody else with a hand up? I didn't notice anybody. No. Any cabinet members want to comment? No? Okay. This is, Mr. Wiltshire got off very lightly, I think. I should have mentioned earlier, we did receive a statement from a resident of Swanage, which is related to this topic, but under the current rules of Cabinet, statements aren't read out, they disappear in the minutes, so that will appear in the minutes when they're published. In which case, does any member of the Cabinet disagree with the recommendations as set out in the papers? No, I don't see any disagreement, so in which case the recommendation's carried. So the next agenda item is going to be me, because Councillor Clifford isn't here tonight. So this is the July 25 brackets period 4 financial management report. 25-26. So Councillor Clifford has quite handily given me some notes, which I'll read out. So if you wish, you can just put in your head Simon speaking rather than me. So this report is Dorset Council's period 4 financial management report, and it's a snapshot of where we stand financially as of July this year. And to be clear, the challenges it sets out are real, but so is our commitment to managing our resources. So we are spending record amounts on our services, and our teams are providing high quality, vital support all across the council. So I give my thanks to all our staff. This document, however, highlights a projected £7.7 million overspend. This report covers the period that our children's services were graded as outstanding by Ofsted. We celebrate this great achievement and reflect in this report on the demand on our services that continues to challenge us. Supporting and keeping vulnerable children safe is, of course, an absolute priority, so increased numbers seeking our help is a commitment from all councillors in this room. Coupled with the increase in demand for our adult social care provision, this means we face challenges, but challenges that must be met. These services are vital to vulnerable residents and are not optional extras. We are currently engaged in positive talks with the Department for Education over new approaches that, if agreed, will help reduce costs and improve the outlook for strong numbers of our children with extra needs. The report also highlights a change of approach through our council-wide transformation plan. We remain on track to deliver the council of the future over the coming 3 years with greater use of emerging technology, including AI. We remain committed to delivering all promised savings in full. It's also fair to say that this is taking longer than anticipated to get fully up to speed and running as we reflect the input from unions, which has delayed some engagement timescales, as well as reflecting on the early consultation data that has now come through from staff. And a final thought from Simon, really, is that the scale and capital of our budget, which stands around a capital budget, which is around about £169 million. This is bold and ambitious as we look to invest in all that our teams need to deliver the outstanding services across our county. I'll now go into slightly more detail. So we're currently forecasting a 7.7 million overspend, which in numbers is about 1.8% of our total 470 million budget. That is not where we want to be, but at this point in the year, with a new chief executive in place, and it is not insurmountable. The main pressures are coming from rising costs in adult and children's social care, services that support our most vulnerable residents. These are not optional, as I mentioned already, they are the core of what we are here to do. We are also seeing delays in delivering savings from our transformation programme, OFC, our Future Council. Whilst there is slippage, we are still moving forwards, just not as fast as we'd hoped. At the directorate level, performance is mixed. Children's Services face a £4 million overspend currently, although they are on track to deliver their savings targets. Birth to settle adulthood, adults and housing are also under pressure due to demand and market costs. However, on a positive note, the Place Directorate is forecasting a small underspend. On the capital budget, we're profiled to spend £169.7 million this year, and we're actively managing slippage and reprofiling to ensure delivery of key projects such as the Levelling Up Fund and vital capacity to support SEND provision across the county. And there's a paper on that later in this meeting. What we're doing about it. So we're not sitting back. The senior leadership team will be introducing tighter financial controls, especially around discretionary spending. We're reprofiling transformation effort to make sure savings are delivered in a sustainable, strategic way, and we're also being transparent. But let's not forget the national context. Local councils across the UK are under immense pressure. Inflation, rising demand, and years of underfunding have created a perfect storm. We are seeing councils around England announcing in their reports, similar to us, overspends of more than £30 million forecast, a position Dorset is far from at this stage, but it does show the severity of the situation for many. Dorset's dedicated schools grant deficit alone is forecast to hit 148 million by the end of this year. That's a systemic issue, not a local one. Working with the Department of Education to revise our safety valve agreement, we are investing in early intervention, prevention and innovation, from family hubs to digital transformation, and eagerly anticipating the white paper this autumn from government setting out their plans. It's worth highlighting again that the DfE funding for Dorset is below average. For example, we receive around £13,800 per EHCP versus a national average of £17,500. We'll be paying nearly £5 million on interest charges on the ever-increasing DSG deficit, to which we'll be adding another £52 million this year because government basically doesn't fund education properly. So in conclusion, while the financial outlook is challenging, we are taking decisive action. Strengthen controls, Focused transformation and ongoing monitoring will be key to navigating the remainder of the year and shaping a sustainable budget for 26-27. And so that's Simon's report. Councillor John Andrews is going to second this, and we have Sean on hand to answer any technical questions, because I certainly won't be able to. John, over to you.
Thank you very much, Leader. I certainly will second this. We know the seriousness, everybody knows the seriousness of our financial situation, especially with the government not supporting our delegated schools grant, etc. So, yeah, happy to second the report.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Does anybody want to ask any questions? Councillor Sumper.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jane Sumper, Beacon Ward, North Dorset. Comprehensive, thank you. And I just also want to comment on the inclusion of birth to settled adulthood and public health within the reporting, which helps break down some of the spending and the costs involved. However, can you confirm that birth to settled adulthood is a separate directorate? Because that's how it's laid out, but I'm not sure if that is actually the case. This is following discussions in a scrutiny performance briefing this morning. There was confusion as to whether it was or not. It shows it as is. I do have some other questions, but I just wanted to understand that.
Okay, I'll take that question first and come back to you. Councillor Sutton is going to answer.
Yeah, thank you, Jane. Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I forgot to introduce myself last time. Councillor Claire Sutton, Cabinet Member for Children's Services, Education and Skills, and Ward Member for Rodwell and Wyke. Yeah, it's absolutely not a separate directorate. It's a cross-cutting project between children's services and adult services. And I think actually that the main point is the more projects which are cross-cutting and don't belong in one specific directorate, the better. So I hope that answers the question, but I can probably flesh that out a bit more if you feel it's needed.
Thank you for that. And yes, it's clear within the reporting here. There's a section in there of contributions from children's and from adults, and also team. So I don't know who team are. That's what it says in the paper.
Do you want what page, just so people can look it up? Sorry.
It's on the table of birth to settled adulthood section. Which, of course, I can't find. But it is in here because I saw it. And in fact, I took a photograph of it and sent it to Alice Deacon earlier today for some clarity as well. It's gone. 85, thank you, whoever that was, very kind, thank you. Yeah, 85. Yes, there it is on 13.26. The table that shows the allocation of budget. So you have team at 2.766, children's 3.454, and adults at 2.825. So who are team?
I think somebody's looking and discussing, so bear with us. Sean, okay. Mr. Kramer.
Hi everyone, good evening. So I'm Sean Creamer, the Corporate Director for Finance and Commercial and acting Section 151. So the breakdown in that table is I believe it's so the team is in the birth to settled adulthood team budget. So I think that is predominantly staffing costs. And then there's the breakdown of the pooled budgets that have come in from the different directorates. And I think focus on the kind of packages of support for the client groups between those lines, and we can follow up with more detail in terms of what lies beneath those budgets if that level of detail is requested.
Thank you. Yes, I would like more detail on that. I know, Sean, you've been very busy, so we haven't been able to catch up fully
today and yesterday. So that would be helpful to understand, just for clarity. Could you explain what reprofiling is?
I can't, but I'm sure Mr. Kramer can.
So can I clarify, is that in relation to the capital programme? Yeah. So in relation to the capital programme, capital is a kind of slightly more dynamic budget in that we set a budget for the project, and often the capital programmes span multiple financial years. So if you think of building a school or something, it may take a couple of years to go through design, planning, build, fit out kind of thing in place. So typically the budget is spread over a number of financial years, recognising how long it will take to deliver the project. So where we're referring to reprofiling, it's typically because the project, the kind of spend profile for the project, so how much do we think we're going to deliver in that financial year, and therefore how much are we going to spend in that financial year, has changed for some reason. So for example, it may have taken longer to get planning permission, or the scheme designs may have changed, or the ability to purchase and use the land for that thing may have delayed it, and as a result, the activity that incurs the expenditure is now going to take place on the 10th of April rather than the 10th of March, and therefore it slips into the next financial year. So that's the type of thing which we reprofile the capital programme for.
You happy with that, Jane?
Yeah, I hadn't seen that word used in these documents before, and the concern was that you were not going to do them, or you were delaying them. But I think I understand the point made. Another question around mitigation, and in children's services, who I have to say, have done fantastic work. And I know that there's an issue around overspend, but that is not around any, what's the word I'm looking for? No, I mean, it's a national problem, and it's a national structural problem. It's not what's going on here, and the work that's been going for some time within children's has played a significant part in improving lives of many of our children. But just one question around mitigation, and I did go through those lines. I just wanted to ask you about the key providers that you work with, and I know that you have conversations with them about their cost bases. That's in the document, but I'm just would like to know about any risk that you carry out or you look at in terms of anticipation of should any of those providers close or need to close for any reason, and how across that you are. So understanding the base of how they operate, that implies that you do that piece of work, but it's not implicit within here.
Councillor Sutton, do you want to take it, or Mr. Dempsey?
Hello, Paul Dempsey, Executive Director for Children's Services. Whenever we're commissioning a care provider or an education provider, we have a brokerage and commissioning service that does all the due diligence to ensure that that organisation is a safe, responsible organisation that is financially stable and at that time and as far as possible into the future. So a proper piece of due diligence work is done before we use a provider.
Councillor Sampo, meet your question.
I expected that. I just wanted some clarification. One other question, please. On 13.89, what are span and controls? Review of span and controls. So I do read this document, so it's like, what do these words mean?
Thank you, Councillor Somper and Chair. Lisa Cotton, Corporate Director for Transformation, Customer and Cultural Services. Span and controls is where we will look at the whole of our structures when we are looking at reorganising and reshaping our structures and our future operating model. So when we were thinking about how we were bringing in that future operating model, spans and controls are the tiers and layers within the organisation. So thinking about that deeper reorganisation, restructure.
Thank you, Lisa. Jane, you done? Thank you for taking the effort to read and answer the questions. So, Councillor, I've got Councillor Bell first. Councillor Monks, you want to ask a question later? Yeah. Okay. Councillor Bell.
Thank you. Councillor Matt Bell, Radipole Ward. I'll keep this short and sweet. What are you doing to root out the compliance spending failures that have been reported in the Echo so much recently?
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Slightly tangential question, I think. But Councillor Simon Clifford has helpfully prepared an answer for me. So the failures and how the council managed its health and safety approach to its buildings from 2019 is a focus for our Audit and Governance Committee. Much work has been undertaken. I was expecting Councillor Suttle to be here tonight, but he's not. This is a hugely complex and challenging set of circumstances, and the Audit Committee has asked Councillor Clifford, Cabinet Member for Finance, to lead a cross-party group to review the work that is being carried out, to look at next steps and report back on the learning that needs to be ingrained across the whole council. That group will report back to the next committee, and I welcome the constructive approach from all members. I can add, though, that we are taking steps to reclaim funds that we believe are due, at least £1 million at the last count. Investigations are still ongoing, and we hope to increase this claim as appropriate. Councillor Clifford has promised on a number of occasions that all councillors should and will get the chance to air their concerns and questions in a public meeting, and this is being arranged. So thank you for your question. Councillor Monks.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Monks, Bedminster Ward. I do also read the papers, but not to the same detail as Councillor Somper, so my question is going to be a bit more simplistic. Fully recognise the external pressures in finance and council from national government, but one sort of simple question I just wanted to ask is that the paper talks about a delay in achieving the £5 million savings from the Future Council Fund. I know some of that's been offset, but are we still looking to, or are we confident we're going to still make those savings within this financial year, or is there an unknown line of that achievement?
Thank you, Mr. Councillor Monks. Mr. Kramer will answer, I think. No? Or Lisa, do you want to? Okay, we'll ask our Chief Exec. There you go.
So, through you, Chair. So what we're outlining in the paper is the fact that we are taking a good look at how we're going about delivering those savings. We're looking at them through the length of the whole programme, and we're combining that with a real focus on how do we make sure that our in-year spending control is as strong as it possibly can be. Because it's a big and complex programme of change, and it's one that needs to relate to the recent decision around the ERP, which is a really big bit of technology that has to make the organisation work. And I'm very keen that all of those things operate really well together. So what you're seeing here is a real commitment to landing in our in-year position where it needs to be, which is on budget. But actually the mix of things that we're doing may be slightly different in year. But the absolute commitment here is that over the course of the programme, the numbers are met, and in year we land on budget. And the paper is outlining a slightly different approach to doing that, but a real commitment to getting it done.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Monks. Councillor Bodden.
Thank you, Chairman. Belinda Borden, Lyme Regis and Charmouth. I noticed on section 13.65 that Dorset Travel is projecting a slight underspend. Councillor Monks raised a very important issue that's affecting all of us in West Dorset, which is the very significant reduction in the winter timetable by first buses. Might this be some of the pennies under the sofa that might help towards enabling students from our neck of the woods to go to college. At the moment, they can't.
Excellent question, Councillor Borden. Mr. Britton's going to answer.
Thank you. Jan Britton, Executive Director for Place. Yes, the Dorset travel budget is forecasting a small underspend at the moment, but there are a number of references in the report to the uncertainty that the point of the year sort of brings into the Place budget. And one of those particular factors is that in September we do a big recommissioning and procurement round for Dorset travel. And until that re-procurement round is completed towards the end of the month, we really aren't that sure about what the outturn figure looks like. Clearly, if we get a good procurement round and prices are contained and, you know, some of our worst concerns about fuel prices and all the rest are not met, then we might well be able to review the situation with regard to other expenditure.
Councillor Borden, do you want to ask another question?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, just to add that RMP is, I believe, requesting emergency subsidy from government to try and rectify this timetabling issue because it's really serious for us. Thank you.
Thanks for letting us know. Any other questions? No. Oh, Councillor Chops-Chell.
Thank you. Councillor Hannah Hobbs-Chell from Ferndown South Ward. This report was, thank you for for the authors of this report, because actually it was really comprehensive, but also quite nice to understand, and the breakdown was really solid. I really welcome the fact that if we are going to overspend, we are spending it on our most vulnerable, and making sure that that offering is right. And I'm proud that as a council we are that's where we've done it. That being said, I also think I note in this there is a lot around prevention work and increasing that prevention work for those overspend areas. And again, that's really, really valuable because I think that will pay dividends in future in terms of financially as well as the health and well-being of our residents and young people. Can I just have the reassurance that actually we'll maintain that perseverance in terms of prevention, and we won't lose sight of the fact that sometimes we might have to overspend to underspend and deliver better in future.
Thank you for your question, Hannah. Councillor Sutton's going to answer.
Yeah, thank you, Hannah. An extremely welcome question. I think one of the notable things in the report is that whilst there are budget pressures throughout children's services, we have actually achieved our savings. And those savings, well, cost avoidance actually in the case of children's services, were predicated on early intervention and prevention generating savings elsewhere in the system. So this paper actually shouts out loud, we got to keep doing that because that is working. So that's very much appreciated as a comment. Thank you.
Any other questions? No. Anybody else? No. Okay. Oh, last minute. Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much, Leader. Councillor Ryan Hope, Cabinet Member for Customer Culture, Community Engagement and Ward Member for Westham in Weymouth. And I know we've focused a lot here this evening on that potential overspend, and rightly so. But I think we must acknowledge the opency and transparency of this report to make all members aware of our current financial situation as a council. Not just councillors and members of this council, but the public. Councillor Matt Bell quite rightly asked the question earlier on around the public current perception of financial mismanagement due to the stories that have been in the paper recently. But I think what this paper really highlights, and it's already been picked up by some of the speakers this evening, that the overspends are nothing to do with financial mismanagement. It is those demand-led services that are beyond this council's sort of forecast. We can try and guess how many homelessness applications we're going to get, SEND provisions, children in care, but we don't know what we're actually going to get until it lands on our doorstep. And I think we should be joining other councils in lobbying for change from national government on how this work is funded. But it's also been picked up around the changes we are doing as a council in preventative work. And I think it really highlights the work that Councillor Taylor's been doing over the last 12 months with the housing team on homelessness prevention, and some of the work that Councillor Robinson's done on our adults and social care and changes to prevention there, and his aspiration for age-friendly Dorset. And it's really high, it supports what Councillor Shell Hobbs has said, that we should continue to invest in prevention to help this forecast be reduced on years to come. So the budget still has my full support, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Hope. I don't think there was a question there, but thank you for your support. And I think, well, maybe the question was, will you lobby government to give us more money? Yes, we will, and across everything. And I think it's fair to say the Labour government have promised a lot and haven't delivered on anything yet. So this autumn will be quite interesting to see what they do. In which case, there are 4 recommendations as set out in the paper. Does anybody disagree with recommendations as set out? No, in which case the recommendations are carried. So moving on to the next item, it's again another Simon Clifford paper. This time I won't read out a whole spiel. It's essentially a fairly simple paper, which is, so back in earlier this year, we passed our budget and we passed a paper similar to this, which is essentially a list of everything above £500,000, which we plan to spend money on. So £500,000 is the threshold where key decisions have to be made, so it comes to Cabinet. These papers are essentially a way of stopping lots of individual things coming back, because we know what we're going to do, hopefully, and so we just batch them up in packs. So this is the second paper this year of basically a list of things which are going to cost quite a lot of money. They are laid out in the document, and the other part of the paper is the modern slavery statement. As it describes in the paper, this is a statutory requirement that we do this every year. It is in the paper. I will read it about. Richard is here to answer any questions that may come out of this. And I think, who's going to second this? It's going to be Councillor Steve Robinson, I believe.
Yes, Chair, happy to second.
So does anybody want to ask any questions about this paper? Nope. Nothing. Well, thank you for your attendance, Richard. I think you got away without answering questions. So is everybody happy with the recommendations as laid out? Does anybody disagree, I should ask? Nope. In which case, the recommendations carried. That was quick. So the next item is item 11. This is the all-age Pan Dorset appropriate adult service contract extension approval, and Councillor Robinson will present it and Councillor Sutton will second.
Thank you, Chair. Appropriate adults safeguard the interests, the rights, the entitlements and welfare of children, young people and vulnerable adults who are suspected of a criminal offence. If a child or vulnerable adult is held in police custody, they are required to have an appropriate adult who will safeguard their interests, their rights and their welfare. Local authorities have a legal duty to provide appropriate adults for children under 18. Between July 24 and June 25, we served over 1,000 vulnerable adults, 209 children under the age of 18 and 14 care leavers. There is a government framework for local authorities and police and crime commissioners for arrangements to jointly commission appropriate adult services for vulnerable adults. And Dorset Council is the lead partner, along with BCP Council and Dorset Police and Crime Commissioners, on a contract to deliver appropriate services. We work with these multiple partners to deliver this critically important service across Dorset and BCP. So this contract expires on the 30th September 2025. So an agreement between these partners delayed a new tender for this service. And so to enable sufficient time for the new tender, the current contract must therefore be extended for another 6 months until the 31st of March 2026. This extension takes the total contract value over 500,000 by just under 30k, so it requires approval. The recommendations is that we approve the extension of the existing contract to the 31st of March 2026.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson and Sutton. Anybody want to ask a question on this? It's just business, essentially. No, not seeing anybody. No. Anybody disagree with extending the contract? Don't say that, in which case we carry it. Thank you. Item 12 is Dorset Council Property and Housing Repair replacement of, and this is not a TLA, it's a six-letter one, RMMSCW framework. I'm sure Councillor Biggs will explain what that is, and Councillor Andrews will second.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Councillor Richard Biggs, Property and Assets and Economic Growth, Dorset-Poundbury Ward. Yes, so I know contracts can seem very, very tedious things, but they're really important to the business of the council. So this is repairs, minor maintenance and small capital works framework. So the existing contract has expired. We do need a new contract pretty soon. We will need a short-term interim solution, which will take us for 6 months before this main contract goes into place. So a lot of thought has gone into this, taking expert advice as to how to lay out this contract. And also, this will go out to tender, so we've got obviously a weighting in terms of quality and price, and social value is also included. And we're keen to get some local contractors. Would be nice, wouldn't it? It's something that I know all councillors have shown an interest in seeing that. Obviously, that's not guaranteed. We're open to contract, but we certainly believe we have interest from some local parties and contractors. It will be divided up into lots for various aspects of works, for electrical and that sort of thing, so that the specialists will fall into the various lots. It will also be divided for west and east of the county, so that the contractors, again, should encourage perhaps more geographically based contractors to do that work, which I think is good. It is a 4-year contract with potentially 2 years extensions. But, for the capital works alone, for the life of the contract, if it did go on for 6 years, that could be 65 million going through that contract, and nearly 5 million a year on revenue for repairs and maintenance. So it is really important that we get that right, that we have a good contract, that we adhere to that contract and monitor that contract closely, and that we deliver good services and efficiencies, and hopefully we'll get good value, for our work, so we get the best bang for our buck for the council taxpayers' money. And that's it, really. 5 recommendations, which are clearly laid out, including one for the interim contract. And I believe Councillor Andrews is going to second it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Richard, for presenting that. I'm happy to second that. Very important that we get local contractors involved in this process. So happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Biggs. We have Jan Britton and Jess Maskery on hand to answer any tricky questions. I don't think there's going to be any questions at all. No, I'm not seeing any hands up. There you go. So anybody disagree with the 5 recommendations as set out in the report? No, in which case, in the absence of disagreement, we carry the recommendations. So the next agenda item is number 13. This is the Knightsford Neighbourhood Plan. Knightsford is a grouped parish council. I used to represent it as the county councillor back in the day. So it's West Knighton, West Stafford, Tinkleton and Woodsford from memory. So they've produced a neighbourhood plan, and it's for here tonight in front of us to approve. So there are 2 recommendations, and Councillor Bartlett will present it, and I will second it.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, the Knightsford Neighbourhood Plan. And I just congratulate those involved for getting their neighbourhood plan to this stage for adoption. Members will be well used to seeing these neighbourhood plans coming before us, so I won't have any hesitation in proposing the recommendations as laid out in the report. Thank you, Chairman.
So for the record, I will second the paper. Anybody want to ask any questions? I don't see anybody from Knightsford Parish Council here. No. Anybody disagree with the recommendations as set out? No. In which case, if there's no disagreement, we'll carry the recommendation. Then congratulations to Knightsford Parish Council. Next agenda item is urgent items, and there are no urgent items report. As I mentioned earlier, we have an exempt paper, which is acquisition of set land for SEND provision. That is going to be exempt, so I have to read out the usual gubbins and then find somebody to second and propose and second, please. So the recommendation is that in accordance with section 100A brackets 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, to exclude the public from the meeting for the business specified in the item below, because it is likely that if members of the public were present, there would be disclosure to them of exempt information as defined in paragraphs 3 of Part 1 of Schedule 12A to the Act, and the public interest in withholding the information outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information to the public. So can I have a proposer for that, please? John Andrews, Councillor Andrews, a seconder. Councillor Robinson got his hand up first, so the recommendation is carried. So we'll just pause for a minute while we stop streaming, and George clears the gallery.